I hope you keep laughing all the way to Election Day, because every millennial thinks what you're laughing at is in
I don't
fact
care if
serious.
every person on the planet has been brainwashed. I still believe in science. And the basic precept of science is don't tell me, show me. Prove it. And no one bothers to do that.
Tucker Carlson, what's he talking about? Climate change. I believe in science. Don't tell me, show me, because it appears that all the Democrats have is rhetoric. And I'm going to point out why the entire argument in itself is a farce, a false front. It has holes in it everywhere. And I'm going to show you the very foundation by which one of the measurements are taking through a new study that just came out. That if you have any friends who still doubt that the record keeping is falsified, by the end of this broadcast, you'll be the one that has the last laugh. My name is Justice Knight. I can't thank you enough for being here. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Make sure the bell is checked and YouTube notifications are turned on. If they aren't, or you don't want to rely on YouTube to notify you, go now just above my head. That's right. Click on that link. Goes to justiceknight.com. Put in your email. You'll only receive an email from me when I post a video. Trust me, I don't have time to go through all the emails and send spam mail. Not my interest nor my intention, because we have much better things to cover here. Because after Hurricane Dorian hit and blaming it on climate change, now I want to make one thing very clear. The climate is changing. It changes all the time. It gets warmer, it gets colder. It's by nature. And if you think for a minute that we are able to do anything about that change, that's where the short-sightedness begins. And why I poke holes in this argument all the time here on Breitbart. Fact check. No, CNN, Hurricane Dorian is not evidence of climate change. No, it's not. It's a hurricane. But we're going to continue because it's a tough argument to have with people. Associated Press, the North Pole, most Americans see weather disasters worsening. You could go to the poll, or actually, let's just read some of the text rather than reading all the verbiage of these boring polls. Keeping in mind now, this is about 1,200 people surveyed. Nearly 3/4 of Americans see weather disasters like Hurricane Dorian worsening, and most of them blame global warming to some extent, a new poll finds. And scientists say they're right. What scientists? What evidence? What facts? I'm about to show you facts that is so irrefutable. Oh, you're going to love this. You're going to love to show this to your friends who are still believe in the entire rhetoric points. The Associated Press Center for Public Affairs research shows that 72% of Americans think catastrophic weather is more severe, while 4% see it as less nasty. About 1/4 say those disasters are about as extreme as they were. So we got 72%. Half of those who think weather disasters are worsening say it's mainly because of man-made climate change. That's right, 74% of 1,200. Let's just do round numbers. Let's go 800. Only half of those, so 400 out of the entire survey, actually believe this is climate change. So you already see the twisting in how they title everything. But now let's go to factual evidence. Let's put holes all over this argument immediately. This was published on Commentary Magazine. Global warming or bad data. And I love this saying, garbage in, garbage out. So in other words, all the studies you want to run, if you're giving the study bad data, it will always export bad data, bad results. Garbage in, garbage out. All you accountants out there I know are cheering right now because you've been involved in that many, many times. The article states, and climate science has always suffered from the problem of shaking and missing data. 70% of the globe is covered by oceans where data is hard to collect. Okay, so we just eliminated, that's right, 70% of the weather data is already wiped away. Where data is hard to collect, reliable weather records only go back to about 1850 and in many parts of the world are far more recent. Modern recording weather stations date only to the early 20th century. So all this record keeping is hypothetical in most respects. So when you're seeing all these long bar graphs over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, the data wasn't even being collected back then. Point A. And many of those stations have a big problem. While they haven't changed appreciably over the years, the land around them has changed. This is the key. So all these weather stations around, let's just take the United States right now, that's what we're focused on, have actually changed as to where they're located. With the growth in urban and suburban areas, those old weather stations that were once located in a nice little field are now in the urban wasteland. And guess what happens? The weather station that was put, say, in the middle of Nassau County, Long Island, potato field in 1923, is still in the same spot. But the potatoes are long gone, and now it's behind the strip mall, 20 feet from the kitchen exhaust fan of a Chinese takeout joint. Of course, using some artistic license there, but you get the point. The weather stations were there long before much of the population was. But they didn't change them when the population went in. And how can we prove that? This little study here. Is the U.S. surface temperature record reliable? This gentleman went out and physically recorded almost 900 of the 1,221 weather stations in the United States. The reliability of data used to document temperature, he states, trends is of great importance in the debates. We can't know for sure if global warming is a problem if we can't trust the data. Garbage in, garbage out. There we go. The official record of temperatures in the continental United States comes from a network of, 1,221 climate monitoring stations overseen by the National Weather Service, a department of NOAA. Until now, no one had ever conducted a comprehensive review of the quality of the measurements of these stations. Why would we want that? It won't lend to the argument. Oh, I may have jumped ahead a little bit there. During the past few years, I recruited a team of more than 650 volunteers to visually inspect and photographically document more than 860 of these temperature stations. That's why I said nearly 900. We were shocked by what we found. Oh, they certainly were shocked. We're going to start with the most basic and kind of small, minute little detail. He went out and saw how they were painted. And the paint, as you see on the graph here, actually affects the temperature variance. But that's a very, very small portion of the variables that he found. Here you see one of the weather stations next to a cell phone tower, a shelter, an air conditioning unit exhaust fan. So what's that do? Well, look at the FLIR data. That just shows you where the heat sources are coming from next to these weather stations, which would impact the heat that they're recording. It would be a false high. And what he did is he went through and he started, now you'll even see here, this station was moved. So the data is baselining at about 18 and all of a sudden, boom, they move it and the temperature spikes almost like they wanted to make sure that these were recording higher temperatures. Why adjust for the variance they're supposed to have? The 100 feet differential is supposed to be 100 feet away from anything. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now they've made some adjustments here and you'll see the data magically went up. And here's all the pictures, just so you know the physical data behind this. And you'll see the variances. He showed where all these are located, and you'll see most of them are now next to buildings, all well within the 100 feet that they're supposed to be aside from anything. But that's not quite everything yet. You see, there's all the stations around the country. And there's the variance that he found with these stations, from the actual air temperature that he recorded to what the station's recording. The red delineates a 5-degree or greater change. The orange, a 4-degree or greater change. Do you see what I'm meaning here? 2-degree or greater change, I apologize. But you see the big chunk, 64? Oh, wait, that's 70% of the stations are inaccurate and recording much higher temperatures, leading to the global warming argument. He gives it on his executive summary a recap of this. In fact, we found that 89% of the stations, nearly 9 out of every 10 failed to meet the National Weather Service's own siting requirements that they must be 30 meters, about 100 feet or more away from an artificial heating or radiating, reflecting heat source, concrete, building, solar panels, whatever it may be. Well, that's not the case. In other words, 9 out of every 10 stations are likely reporting higher or rising temperatures because they are badly located. But it gets worse, he states. We observed the change in the technology of temperature stations over time also has caused them to report a false warming trend. We found major gaps in the data record that were filled in with data from nearby sites. So if a site went down, instead of capturing, fixing it, and recalibrating it, they just grabbed it from nearby, compiled the data, and this then takes errors and basically doubles and triples them. You start to see where this whole trend makes the U.S. temperature record as a whole unreliable and inaccurate. But I never take one source for those facts. I went to a second, Real Clear Energy. Climate alarmists foiled. No U.S. warming since 2005. This was eye-opening. In January 2005, NOAA began recording temperatures at its newly built. They had to rebuild U.S. Climate Reference Network because even NOAA, I don't believe, was sure, but this data was all shelved. 114 pristinely maintained temperature stations, brand new, state-of-the-art, new technology. What's it going to record back in 2005? Away from all the developments, away from the urban areas, to within the sighting range they're supposed to be within. And you know what they recorded? No temperature change at all. None in the last, and you see it there, from 2005 till now. Not a single degree of temperature change. My friends, you've all been lied to. You've been handed a bill of goods, and the information and data is right in front of us. But don't worry, they'll try to repudiate all this, get rid of all of it, because we have the Bernie Sanders of the world now, as you'll hear him, and I'm not even going to play the speech, it's not worth it, making remarks about population control, making remarks about the Green New Deal, which, by the way, and we've covered this before, this is the founder, this is the godfather of the Green movement. He's just using AOC through Chakrabarti and everybody else to extend his agenda, which he so strongly believes in, even showing his hand that he believes we need population control. I'm going to play this clip here very quickly for you.
Good evening. Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth. I realize this is a poisonous topic for politicians, but it's crucial to face. Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact. Would you be courageous enough to discuss this issue and make it a key feature of a plan to address climate catastrophe?
Well, Martha, the answer is yes. And the answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions.
Did you get that? Abortions are okay because it's going to help solve climate change. Even though I showed you data, that the data we're providing the machine is false. So how evil is this agenda in actuality? Is it about lowering the population? Or is it about the $1 trillion price tag to cure all these CO2 ills that really don't exist? Because they falsified the data to make you believe it exists. Again, not the only study out there. To the point that the same gentleman, I use Bernie Sanders here over and over again because I'll always use the godfather of the movement. $16 trillion climate plan. Well, guess what? That would fall on the taxpayers' shoulders. Because we need to collect revenue for something that doesn't exist based on falsified data that we know is inaccurate, but we're not going to show you the real data because then that would poke the final holes in the entire climate change argument that it's a man-made occurrence and not created or something that we can't possibly ever change. And that's the real reality that they never want you to hear. So please share this video. Allow your friends to try to poke holes in the actual data. The actual measuring devices. I can't put it more simplistic than this for you. This is the biggest farce and sham that we'll ever see in our lifetimes, and it continues and propagates and grows and speeds up, but we're going to continue to speak against it. So until next time, I want to thank you for tuning in. Please assure, if you haven't subscribed, you do. Give this a thumbs up. I look forward to seeing your comments. And until next time, Justice Knight, Godspeed and God bless. Signing out.